Hello and welcome back to another episode of Transport Fever 2. We're here in Brookshire County on our train line up to our lake town, and in this video we're going to focus on a lot of our lines across the map, making sure that those are running as efficiently and effectively as possible since it's been a little bit since we looked at those. And then I think we also have one or two projects that I think I want to start building here in this video if we have time at the end. And so here we can see our passenger train coming up to our lake town, currently carrying 18 people with 36 waiting at the station here. So I think we'll keep this at one train for now, but while we're up here at our lake town, I think I finally have a name that I like. And so you guys left some great suggestions. There are a few that I personally really like, such as Woods Landing and a few others, but one that really stuck out to me that I think really fits the sort of naming convention that we've been going with on this map so far is Monroe. And so we now have our new town of Monroe up here by our lake, pretty close to Roswell. I think this is a pretty good name, so thank you whoever suggested that. And I'm happy that this little village here finally has a name that we can start to call it by. And so our train has just dropped off those people. Let's see. Yeah, it looks like it's not going to be too terribly profitable, at least until we can get a full train going back and forth on this line. But again, I don't think we really expected to make money on this line. It was more the cargo line that we have up here. So we might even get to that if we have a chance, or at least we'll start thinking about it, because getting that working so that our cargo train isn't losing us so much money. If we take a look here, it does earn a decent amount of money, but as you can tell, the empty trip back to the cargo hub is really what's costing us a lot of money here. So we should probably get that figured out as soon as possible. But anyway, coming back to the Houston area, I want to take a focus on a lot of the lines that we have running here, especially the more complex ones, such as the ones coming in and out of this train station that seems to now really only exclusively be moving construction materials out of Houston. Take a look at those lines, make sure those are running properly and the rates are set up the way they need to, and everything else going on with this. And then also do the same for some of the other lines across the map. Make sure those are running fine and that there's nothing too big that we're missing at the moment. And so let's start here addressing our construction materials plant. Things have started to run fairly smoothly since we've upgraded our trucks. We're no longer getting a huge line of traffic. However, we do have this long dirt road which currently limits our trucks to 25 miles an hour, and I believe they can get up to 35 or even probably more than that, 37 miles an hour. So I think upgrading a good portion of this road, maybe not all the way up into the station here, but given the time period that we're at, I feel like this road would be paved over. So let's bring this road up, and I think we actually want to go with this. So we'll upgrade that, and we'll bring this all the way up until we reach the turn here, and I think that's a good spot where it can transition into a dirt road. So we'll leave that. That should help out with the rate. We should have checked beforehand before upgrading the road to see how much it's improved, but I'm sure we still need those construction materials regardless, so it's not like we're limiting ourselves there, and we can handle a maximum of 1,600 coming out of our quarries here, so we're nowhere close to maxing that out yet. And then also this road here I think would make sense to be upgraded, so we'll just go ahead and do that. I think we'll extend it all the way to this road just so that we get the matching asphalt color. And I think this works. And looking at this line, it looks like it takes an unnecessary turn up an extra road. I don't know if that has always been the case, but let's get rid of that. And it looks like it automatically routes the way we want it to. I forget if we always had it coming down this road. I'm not sure if we have or not, but I think we're starting to run with few enough trucks to where this isn't really going to be an issue in the long run. So having the trucks come in and then take this road straight in, it'll keep our traffic sort of separate from each other, so the return trip still goes back on this main road, but the trucks coming in sort of stay off on some smaller side roads as they come into the construction material plants. And so that brings us into the next area I wanted to take a look at, which is our construction materials coming out of Houston on this train here. I think we definitely need to be taking more out. And again, since we identified that we're no longer taking fuel into Salt Lake City due to this truck line here, we don't need to waste money on fuel cars since Houston gets fuel, Salt Lake City gets fuel, so moving fuel between those cities is a little bit redundant at this point. So I think really what we're going to do is more or less just replace the tank cars with flat cars to carry more construction materials. So we'll just come in here and we'll grab both of these vehicles to edit them. And it looks like we're running the super heavy flat cars. We'll just delete all of our tank cars. And then we'll replace them with 7 more flat cars. I think that's a decent trade-off. We can take a look here, and it looks like this train is going to do better power-wise, but we are carrying slightly less, so there is that. But let's now finish this off. We'll add 7 cars onto this line, and that should, for the most part, handle everything there. We will have to keep an eye on the rate because obviously we have a lot of construction materials coming into here. We even have 2 trains moving these construction materials, and it's still pretty much filling up this station, so we'll have to keep an eye on that and make sure we're not taking away too much from one line or the other. Alright, so let's take a look elsewhere in Houston. I think our fuel line is still doing just fine. We really have no issues there. Both of these oil wells are maxed out, and we are pretty much running at the limit here. I think we could probably aim to max this line out, especially since we might have some better tank trucks now. So if we look to move a total of, I suppose it would be 1,600, and we find, first let's see what truck we're currently using. So 37 miles an hour with 14 capacity. Let's take a look at what trucks we have now. So this is similar with 16 capacity, and this one is 15. Now, I'm not sure if the upgrade is quite worth it, although let's go for it. I think that'll get us pretty close to 1,600, as we can see 1,500. I don't want to add more trucks because I do still want to be conscious about this road and the traffic coming to this intersection, but I think 1,500 is a good rate to target. We'll just make sure our boat lines can handle that, so we'll have to add a few more boats in order to get closer to the 1,500 that we would need. We'll get one more just so that we're over. So I think that will work out good. Now, we have a total of 1,500 fuel that we have available to us. Or actually, that gets reduced by half. So we end up at about 750. And if we take a look at the breakdown, this is currently fueling Houston, Salt Lake City, Allentown, and Portland. So we're going to have to play a little bit with the numbers here to make sure that we're getting the right resources to where they need to be. So if we start first at Houston, which is the city that needs it most, I think we definitely should focus on starting to get some more fuel into this city, since we're currently only giving it about a fifth of what it really needs. But all that fuel really just needs to come into this industrial area. And I think we just have this one line handling all that fuel. So these trucks could be upgraded, and I think that will help a lot. So let's maybe go... Well, we'll go with these same trucks here. It's not great, but you can see the rate has greatly increased. However, I think we'll probably sell a few vehicles, because I don't think this one stop covers 550 worth of fuel. It probably only covers about a third of what we need. So realistically, maybe this even comes down to closer to a number like 350. So we'll sell 5 vehicles, see where that gets us down to. 400, still a little bit high. So maybe 4 more. And that gets us down to 300, which I think is a bit more of a realistic number given how much this one stop covers. Now we could probably add another stop here and then another stop in this area. Although we have to remember our port does cover some of these buildings, so we don't need to stop directly in this cargo area. But I think that's an issue for us to tackle once we have more fuel available to us, since, remember, we do only have 750 fuel to split between 4 cities in this case, so we're already giving almost half of that to Houston. And then if we come over to Salt Lake City needs 250, and currently it looks like it's only getting 86. We could double check that here. Salt Lake City is, I guess, technically getting 146, with this truck line only moving 219. So I think our truck line needs to handle... Well, I guess this needs to handle the rest of everything. So if Houston is getting... I guess we can estimate roughly 350 to 400 fuel. That means this truck line needs to be able to handle 400 to 450 fuel by itself, so that can get Salt Lake City, Portland, and Allentown all of the fuel it needs. So these are going to have to get upgraded, and then we're probably going to have to duplicate a good portion of these trucks. So let's get up to probably a little over 30 trucks. Maybe one more set of 5. 421 seems like a decent enough number. So now all the remaining fuel should be coming into this area here, where it will now either get distributed into Salt Lake City, which if we take a look here, all the fuel is in this area, so I think it might be this stop, or we should figure out which stop is fuel. So this stop is fuel down here. This hardly covers any fuel, so I think we're going to have a separate stop placed here, and then we'll have to grab the fuel line and just move it over, which isn't a bad thing. It'll help spread our traffic out just that little bit more. We can move that, put that back in there. And we're currently running at a rate of 230. I think that's okay. We could take a look at the trucks. I think we could probably sell one or two of those trucks. I don't think we need to be all the way up at 230 right now. I think 200 will be good. And it looks like we accidentally used a passenger stop instead of a cargo stop. So let's get that fixed real quick. So that should work now. But yeah, so we'll end up supplying Salt Lake City with about 200 fuel, which then only leaves Portland and Allentown with about 100 each, which is fine because Portland currently is only receiving 40. And I'm not sure where I think we're dropping that off here. So we have the space for 110. I'm not sure what our trains are moving. If we take a look here, it is carrying an almost full load of fuel. And I'm sure we could do the math, but we could probably add one or two more fuel cars if we really wanted to. But given the fact that this train isn't coming back with a full load of fuel, I don't think we need to adjust that at the moment. Which then leaves us off with Allentown. And this one's a bit tricky because our boats can carry a ridiculous amount of fuel. However, it all comes down to how much we're actually delivering in Allentown. So we'll have to find one of our fuel trucks. We might have to click around for a bit. Or we can just click here. And so Allentown is receiving fuel at this stop coming from our highway, and this has a rate that is much higher than we actually need. I think we set ourselves up for a lot more and for some growth, but right now we don't really have that bandwidth at the moment. So we'll sell off a good portion of these trucks to get us down to a little over 100, I think would be a good number. So we'll sell a good bit of those. That only gets us down to 205. So we'll sell a couple of more. And with just 13 vehicles, that gets us to a rate of about 100. So we'll leave it at that. Hopefully that will work out. I think maybe we'll just get one more. But I think that ends up being a good number for this fuel line. Alright, and so our numbers aren't fully reflective at the fuel refinery just yet, but we do see our production numbers slowly climbing. We can see the distribution here is going to slowly change. Houston will probably increase up to about 300. Salt Lake City will get to around, I forget where we ended off with, but these numbers will all end up slowly shifting to where they need to be. But it is going to take a while for us to see some of those changes since boats move so slowly. It will take some time before we see any change in the real numbers that we're moving around. And so let's take a look at our Salt Lake City hub here, and it looks like some lines could definitely be adjusted. We have this machines line that seems to be receiving a lot of machines at the moment. So let's sort of follow this back and see where these need to go. And so Salt Lake City only needs 171 machines. I believe we're also splitting our machines going into Houston. So let's see how much we're currently moving in Houston. So we're actually about halfway there on machines in Houston, and I'm okay with this number. I'm okay with keeping this because I know we only have one machines factory on the map at the moment, so I don't really want to push that farther than we necessarily need to. So as long as we're receiving those, I'm okay with that. But just so we can get the numbers situated, we should find our machines line. That's able to move 136 machines. Our machines line here is only moving 68. And so that totals to about 200 machines coming to Salt Lake City and Houston. Let's go find our machines factory. And if we take a look here, we definitely have Houston and Salt Lake City up here. Houston is requesting the most machines out of anyone, but it looks like it's pretty evenly split across most of the cities. And it looks like we can still supply more steel. I'm really not sure how we can get too much more steel coming out of this area. I mean, we have 4 or 5 separate industries just pumping out steel from all the iron and coal that we're bringing in. And somehow that's still not enough to keep up. These boats are leaving, well, almost full. If we take a look at some of these, it looks like a few of them aren't exactly full, but we can definitely see that steel is our limiting factor here at the machines factory. So I don't think we can bring more in by train. I think we have both of those situations sort of full at the moment. Now, we could potentially bring extra in by road, but we'd also be running basically the same lines as our trains, so that somewhat defeats the purpose, but that might be another option just so we get a bit more consistency with what we're bringing in here, because trains do sort of have a little bit of time between each train and then they drop off a huge load of resources, but I'm not sure if that's really what we need here. However, I think that's a problem for us to investigate further later. Maybe we just get a second steel mill, maybe over on the end here, and we'll just have a bunch of steel, iron, and coal getting moved around along this river, but that's just something to put on our plate for much farther in the future. So anyway, coming back to this machines factory, I think our numbers are okay here for what's coming out. So Houston and Salt Lake City, those numbers are fine. But let's go back to Salt Lake City. And we can take a look at our machines line. So we were receiving, I believe it was 86. And our current trucks are only moving 71. So let's just simply duplicate that. Maybe we'll get one extra. That'll bring us up to 94 that we can move. And so then we'll start to see this station slowly unload, and we'll have a little bit less resources just piling up. And then our number here in Houston, this was 134. Let's find the truck stop that we're currently using for machines. And so this is dropping off right here, which does seem to be where we want it to be for machines, and it's moving 140. Now we do have a good amount of machines waiting, and I'm wondering if maybe there's something we can do to fix that. Maybe let's upgrade these trucks. So I believe we're currently running these here. We could pretty easily just upgrade to a flatbed truck. But we'll go with something a little bit different, just so that maybe it costs less and takes up less space. So let's go with one of these. Or actually, let's double check the capacity on these trucks. So these are moving 13. So whatever we replace them with, we will want to make sure that it's moving 13 of those resources. And so let's just go with these. They're much cheaper than the larger ones here. We'll do that. We'll get a slight increase in rate, I believe. We might have already, but I think that will work out just fine. Actually, it looks like these only carry 13 as well, so maybe we do need to go with the slightly higher capacity and go up to 151. I think that'll be fine. It's probably not as cost effective, but it's better than adding more traffic onto the streets that are already getting pretty busy here. Alright, and then we have a few other lines in Salt Lake City that I think could use some adjusting. So we have a lot of construction materials building up, and I think we're actually handling it pretty well. But we did upgrade our our trains bringing construction materials in, so Salt Lake City sort of has an endless need for construction materials. So we're definitely not going to max out the city in that regard, but we could take a look at some of our truck stops, see where we're dropping off these construction materials. It looks like one is here, and then the other one's probably up here. And now that does cover a good portion of where we need it. However, let's try moving this line over just a bit because it was here and that sort of overlaps some other industries. If we move it onto this street, this allows us to cover much more of that area. And so let's try that. We'll have to let this play to see what our rate ends up becoming. But I think if we target maybe around 300 on this line, I think it was a little over 200 before. Actually, it looks like we placed that station too far away for it to accurately route. So we'll delete that stop. And we'll have it come up here. That does add a decent amount of trucks onto this road. However, I think I'm okay with that. And that also brings our rate up to 340 almost immediately. Yeah, let's sell 2 vehicles. That'll bring it down to 288. And so I think those will be good enough numbers to handle the demand that we now have. And then lastly, we have our tools truck here. Salt Lake City needs 268 tools. I believe we're dropping them off here, which should cover the full tools need that we need here. And so we are accurately moving the amount. We just need to get a few more trucks. So I'd say 2 or 3 more trucks, and I think we'll be at a decent number. And so we'll do that. That brings us up to almost 220. It's just a slight increase in the line rate, but we do want to be conscious about traffic and this intersection specifically, all the trucks coming in and out. Now we could just opt for larger trucks, but I do want to, although we haven't really been focusing on it, but our emissions, if we come into this layer here, I guess emissions are really bad no matter where you go in a city, but especially since all of this down here is residential, it doesn't hurt to have the trucks that are coming through this area, such as our tools truck, being a little bit smaller just to reduce it that tiny bit. Alright, so Portland seems to be doing okay. This one is one of our cities receiving all 6 resources, so the numbers look alright. We're actually above half for a lot of the lower 4 resources here. Machines and food we're definitely sort of under on. And I have a feeling we could be bringing more food in, and I'm not sure why we're not. So let's just double check that we're bringing food in where we need it. And I definitely think our demands have shifted, as this is our food line, and it's only covering a small, very small corner of the greater demand for food. So I think more realistically we need this more placed on this street, and it looks like that didn't switch over, so we'll move this from here up to here. So that should greatly increase the amount of food that we're able to bring in here. Now we could split this off into a second line that delivers more up in this area, but I think let's see what the effects are of this change line first before we do that, because I believe this line currently can move 300, and we were only moving about 150, so that'll be a fairly decent change in what we'll be moving into the city. We'll just have to see how that ends up playing out here with these industries. Alright, and so while we obviously wait for that number to change, all the other numbers here in Portland look just fine. So I think that's this area of the map pretty well covered in terms of our lines and the balance of those lines. We should start to see things slowly even out as our trucks make their way to their stations and we wait for boats and trains to get to where they need to. And so I think that pretty much covers it for most of the map. I think that's where a lot of our lines overlap, so there shouldn't be too many more issues elsewhere, as those haven't gone through any drastic changes. But we will just click through our cities real quick, make sure nothing looks too out of the ordinary there. So Roswell's looking good. Everything at this cargo hub's looking fine. Lincoln is getting the resources it always has been. It could obviously use with some more. Tacoma, the same thing. Tacoma could probably use some more resources, but it seems to be doing just fine. And Pittsburgh's recently gone through some changes, but some of these numbers could be better. But I think first we need to tackle whatever issue we have going on here with traffic. So that's a problem for probably another time. I don't think we're going to be able to really address that in this video. I think some of the logistical things around Pittsburgh is going to be a little bit harder to deal with, considering we have limited access to the main area of the city between the two rivers just due to all the bridges. So I think that's what it is. We're really bottlenecking our traffic due to these bridges, but that's part of the challenge, and that challenge is going to take a little bit of time to clean up whenever we decide to tackle this problem. Alright, and so I want to come back to Houston, and since we did expand this area, and we briefly talked that I wanted this area to be a bit more of a destination area, since it's due to its proximity to the highway and how it's fairly close to the center of Houston. It's just right down one of the main streets here. So I think we're going to fill in, I think, this plot of land, and I think it would be cool to have a stadium here. So again, a lot of this stuff is going to end up being very custom compared to how the game handles things. So we do have a stadium asset that we'll use, and then we'll use a bunch of person magnets to drive a lot of demand. And so I think it'd be cool, especially since Houston's sort of our capital, to have a lot more of these larger, more touristy destinations throughout the city. And that'll help also with transportation aspects. It'll bring up some interesting problems for us to solve, such as having our train station here and a stadium here, how we deal with getting people from point A to point B. Also, we'll be testing the limits of our highway since we'll be placing such a high demand location so close to the entrance and exits here. We'll obviously start pulling people in from surrounding cities such as Salt Lake City, Tacoma, maybe even Portland, if the distance isn't too far. So I think that'll be a fun project. It'll really help to start build out this side of the city that's sort of not really developed. I know a long time ago, I still have plans for maybe a small shopping center here. Maybe this can end up being like a bunch of hotels and such, since it'll sort of be in the heart of this whole area. But I think hopefully you can sort of see it too. This whole section here will all end up being sort of custom buildings that will be very tourism oriented, and so that's an exciting project that I think will be a lot of fun to build out over time. So let's get started off with just the stadium portion here, and we'll see what we come up with and how it ends up looking. Alright, and so I think this is where we're going to leave our stadium off at. We made a ton of progress with it. It's still far from complete, but it is, for the most part, functional and looks good enough to pass from a distance. So I think this is a good point to stop. But this whole area came out really nice. I think this was the perfect amount of space for a stadium. So as you can see, obviously tons of parking everywhere. That's what this looks about proportionate to what you would see, at least in America, for a stadium roughly this size. You can see we've definitely messed up our traffic a whole bunch with all of these cargo magnet or people magnets. So let's come through here and we're going to adjust probably all of them really, because we have so many of them. They do not need to be all the way up at the 20 person capacity that they're currently set at. So we'll set a lot of these down to like 10, 20, maybe even 30 in some of the more desirable areas. So a lot of the parking right in front of the stadium would probably be more desirable, so we'll leave these up a little bit higher. And then some of the magnets we have placed a bit farther away, those ones will lower down to 10 or maybe even 20 in some cases. But for the most part, a lot of the parking areas are designated as commercial, and then we have these two roads back here which I have designated as industrial. So we'll leave the two industrial at 50. Hopefully that ends up making some kind of sense, as it looks like I'm really torn on if this should be a stoplight or if this should be a stop sign. I think for right now, let's turn this off and we'll have this just be a stop sign, just so we can start to clear out some of the cars as we adjust things. But again, coming through here, slowly switching these down. We have a lot less out in this area of the parking lot, since, again, obviously this would be a little less used, so we don't need quite as many person magnets, and the demand on them doesn't need to be quite as high. Just enough that we see some cars driving in and out occasionally. So we can have that. Here, this one will drag down. But you can see a lot of people overall are coming into this complex, so we definitely went a little bit overkill with these people magnets. But in order to get an even distribution of cars throughout here, we'll take a look at the destinations layer in a moment just to see how people are getting into these areas. This is the last one, I believe. So traffic's going to take a little bit of time to clear up, but it looks like things are getting a bit better. If we take a look at our destinations layer, we can now see we're having a lot of people, specifically from Houston, coming in and coming into this area. It looks like these people are leaving Houston, but coming in from Salt Lake City, we have a fair amount of people coming in. We can see this road's getting heavily used, but I don't think that's quite representative at the moment of some of the things that we would use. Now we can see all of our person magnets that are getting used, or at least the ones that have people going towards them. This seems to really have started to calm down a bit. Again, this is going to be an ongoing adjustment as things go on, so I'd rather it start low and then we slowly ramp it up until we find the balance that we need. But overall, I think this came out really well, and if we zoom out here, I think it's a really nice addition overall to the city, and it'll be a really nice addition overall to this region of the map. And so let's just take a moment to sort of walk through my thinking in this area now that things are set and functional. So obviously we have our main road coming into here. I think maybe we could get a second one somewhere else, and that could maybe be like a staff only entrance or like a back way into the stadium. But for now it's just this road, and then obviously that main road goes all the way through back to where it can't go anymore. This gets a little messed up because there is a person magnet right here, so I'm not too sure how best to sort of hide this or blend this in, but from a distance it's not too bad really. But then obviously everything over here is just parking, visitor parking. This area here I think would be a fun sort of like team tailgate area, so there might be a lot of like merch stands, and this is where a lot of people would come to gather before heading into the stadium. So there's a lot of work to be done in this area. We'll have to find some assets that would work pretty well here and have this look like there's a lot of stuff going on. And then moving on, we have the main entrance to the stadium. We have some stalls set up out here, which would, again, probably have some sort of team merch or something else right outside of the stadium. Some more parking. And then this area, I intend to be more of like a staff and team area. So I think maybe this area here, we could fence it off, and this would be where buses park. So team buses, staff buses, whatever, those could park here. This is sort of like staff parking. We could probably get another row of it and help fill out this area a bit more. And then everything back here would be sort of back of house things, deliveries, all that other stuff. So again, there's more blending that could be done here, but overall, I think this came out really nice, and I'm excited to put a bit more work into it to really finish it off in the coming videos. Alright, so I think with that, that's really all the time that we have to do in this video. So let's take a closer look at what we've done so far in this video, and then when we come back, we'll talk about some next steps and future projects. Alright, and so now that we're back, we can see here what it would be like driving in, but let's take a closer look at the lines we adjusted earlier in this video. So we'll come out of here, and we can move right over to the other side of Houston, and first we can take a look at our stone line, which was just a minor change. But we can see we are bringing in more stone than we were before. I believe we were at around 900. That's now up to almost 1,200. That'll in turn just help get more construction materials in and out of here. So, for instance, I think these trucks could probably be upgraded as well. And this is moving construction materials, so we'll replace those. And because we don't need that sheer amount of volume, we can get rid of probably about half of them and still be just about on pace to where we were before. But then checking in down here, it looks like we're actually clearing out construction materials out of this area, so that's good to see. We'll just have to now make sure that we're not losing money with how we're doing this. So we do still want to make sure we're bringing in a decent amount of construction materials, which I do think we still are. We'll just have to keep an eye on that as time goes on. But everything else looks to be going okay. Our oil is moving about 1,500. So if we come back to our fuel refinery, you can see this is now up to 750, which is exactly where we wanted it to. And if we even take a look at some of our numbers here, we start to see those set closer to how we set them up earlier. So Houston's, I believe we set that up for around 350. Salt Lake City was about 200, that's almost there. And then Allentown and Portland around 100. So those numbers are getting closer and closer to where we set them up to be. Over here in Salt Lake City then, it looks like we still have a fair amount of buildup on these lines. It looks like we are running into some traffic issues here, so I think we're going to have some sort of change in order to fix that up, but that's going to cause issues for us. We'll get on that right away in the next video. And checking in on Portland, it is now receiving a good amount of bread, or food, I should say, and it looks like we are getting a good amount of deliveries here, so that number might still be changing. But then coming back over to our food processing plants, these look a little bit better. There's still more that we could be producing, but I think this is going okay for where it's at. I think there's more we could extract from these farms, but I don't want to push anything too far at the moment, especially until we unlock higher capacity vehicles, or maybe we have to reevaluate some of these lines. And then coming back to Houston, everything looks good here with our stadium complex. It looks like traffic is much better. We might end up cranking this up a little bit, but again, that's a balance that we'll have to achieve over time, since I do want to end up having to account for the demand in this area with the rest of our transit network. So that'll be exciting. And then I think some other plans in this area. I think over here we'll have sort of a grocery store, department store, something in this area that would serve a wider range of people in Houston. So this could probably be some sort of store. Again, over here, this we wanted to be shops along the road. And then I think maybe this area, and then whatever space we can find along these roads, could end up being hotels and such, since this will probably drive a lot of demand. We'll have a lot of tourist destinations in this area, and then thinking farther in the future, it'll be just down the road from our future airport that we plan on having in this area over here. And so I don't think we'll get to those immediately. As far as next steps in this area, we might come in the next video and do some more detailing of the areas that we weren't able to get finished here. And then I do think we're going to get a fuel line set up near Tacoma in this area somewhere. We have a few oil wells already over here that we might be able to play off of and use those locations to provide a fun challenge for a fuel line in this area. But I definitely think fuel is a big demand that we're currently under delivering on across the map. So eventually then that would connect us to Tacoma. We could get fuel to Lincoln then, and then we could even supply Houston with some extra fuel since that is one of its main resources here. And then lastly, we have our small town of Monroe that we do want to get a forest industry somewhere in this area so that our cargo train that's coming here can take logs on the return trip for those to get taken to the sawmill. So that'll also be something we set up probably in the next video. That might end up being something just very basic at the moment until we have the time to fully detail something like this. But I do think that there's a few other things that we want to get to first before we begin fleshing out this town. Alright, and so with that, I think that's going to be all for this video. So if you enjoyed this episode, please like and subscribe. If you have any suggestions or feedback, leave a comment below. Thanks for watching, and have a great day.